and good morning, everyone. Today, I don't know, what is it? It's Wednesday. I think it's a Wednesday. Wednesdays, everybody loves Wednesdays. But Wednesdays are special to me because that's when I do my Smart Women Conversations on Nurturing Big Ideas today. And today I want to talk to you about zero pet waste and how it affects the environment, what it means, and what you can do to help. And that's why my special guest, Maggie Marton from Oh My Dog Blog, is here. And let me tell you a little bit about her, because she really is very special. And, you know, Maggie, I will say before I even read about your bio and the wonderful things about you, that back when I met you at Blog Pause, I mean, I wanted to be you when I grow up. It's kind of hard because I'm older than you. But let me tell people that Maggie Marton writes about dogs and kids and cats. You know, she is a big pet person. She writes about the environment for print and web publications, and on her award-winning blogs, Oh My Dog Blog and the Zero Waste Pet blog, zerowastepet.com. That's where she writes about all of the things that are so passionate to her. We talk about being passionate about what you do with Nurturing Big Ideas a lot. She also has a co-authored book coming out, Pet Blogging for Love and Money. Now, this is a really, really cool thing, Maggie, because pet blogging is a unique thing anyway. Maybe we'll touch on that a little. And that comes from my background at Blog Pause, everybody knows. But it also is a blog or a book about blogging for love or money, if you take the word pet out, because it's very similar. I mean, if you read this book, folks, if you want to make money blogging, you should read this book, because it teaches you how to take a unique subject and unique focus and make money from it. It's a guide to launching and running a profitable pet blog, which is kind of what Blog Pause used to be about. So Maggie lives in Indianapolis with 1 dog, 2 cats, a toddler, and she says a very patient husband. So Maggie, welcome to Smart Woman Conversations.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so thrilled and honored to be here chatting with you.
Well, it's all on my honor. I'm so honored to have you. It's because one of the things that has always impressed me about you is your commitment to your creativity, how you're consistent in your focus on what you want to do and get done. And also, when we met at Blog Pause, before you even became part of the team, I really could see that you had the solopreneur, entrepreneur, whatever we want to call it, a member of what they like to call the gig economy now. You had that in spades, and you knew that it meant being consistent in your work and your work ethic and everything you did. Talk to us a little bit about being someone in a gig economy, because you're really so good at it.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for all those kind words. That's so nice. I think I actually became a member of the gig economy when I got laid off. So it was unexpected. This was February. It was actually my birthday on 2010. I started looking for a new job, and every time I would start to apply for something, I thought, this isn't exactly what I want. That was kind of the theme. This isn't exactly what I want. So finally it occurred to me, I need to create exactly what I want. And so I bought a ton of books. I'm a very bookish person, on how to freelance and how to write pitch letters and land clients and all that sort of thing. And my background was already in writing. It just had always been as an employee. So it took a while to get up and running, but you're so right. It's consistency. It's putting one foot in front of the other every single day, rejection after rejection, especially in the early days, just to build a portfolio. But it's you can't wait for inspiration. You can't wait until you have time. You have to just make that time and put in the consistent effort, because you're not going to get paid, unlike a job where you can kind of, a couple hours a week, slack off, look at Facebook, chat with your coworkers, and still get your paycheck for those hours. You don't have that when you work for yourself. So it's got to be consistency and discipline. for sure.
So talk about portfolio. Not everyone might know that. And it doesn't only apply to writers. I mean, a portfolio is something that many people should develop, whether, again, whether they're writing or whether they're artists or anything else. I mean, it's a collection of your work.
Right. So whatever you do, even if you work for a corporation, a company, whatever you do, collect your body of work. Keep it in a digital file, print it out, put it in a binder, so that when you do need to, even if it's applying for another job and not looking for a freelance opportunity, or if you're trying to build a side hustle, I know you and I have talked about that quite a bit, the side hustle, you have something to show that says, this is what I can produce. This is the work that I can do. And you have it at the ready in case you need it. Like, I wish I would have had that when I got laid off so that I could have started applying right away.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing I think people don't understand when we talk about consistency, you and I talked a little bit earlier about schedules and how everyone has a different schedule. Everyone doesn't operate on perhaps 9 to 5 the way you would if you were in that job. And sometimes your consistency needs to fit into that schedule properly, and yet, as you know, life interrupts it sometimes. I mean, as the mother of a toddler,
yes,
how do you be consistent? Because the women that I talk to that will probably watch our video, they might not have a toddler anymore, but they do have that interruption in life, and they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, you know, I thought I was pretty good at time management before I had Violet, and then now it's like I had to take it to a whole new level, because once a kid gets mobile, it's like you can't sit and focus on anything because you have to keep them basically from killing themselves all day long. So I found that I needed to create time in my day. And so it would have been very easy, I think, and I know I've been guilty of this, to just say, I don't have the time. Right now is not the season to be working on this. I don't have the time. But I realized that I had to make it. I had to make the time. So she, and I am very lucky to say this, fell into a pretty regular overnight sleep pattern. So I know about when she wakes up every day. So I have been setting my alarm for 5:30 every morning, and I can work from 5:30 until she's up between, 6:45 and 7. And you can get a lot done in an hour when the world is still asleep and you're focused. That, I think, has been the big thing for me, is now that I know that I have this very finite period of time, I can't afford to just pull out my phone and like scroll Instagram or whatever. It's just, I have to sit down for that 75 to 90 minutes and just work.
So that makes me wonder, when we say creativity, and I know that I have been guilty of this in the past, where I don't feel creative, so I can't get anything done. When the reality is, too bad for you. You better be creative. You better find it, especially in what you're saying, the freelance gig economy. You have a project, and a project has to be done. Well, if you're a solopreneur, you still have that project. It just happens to belong to you. And so if you want to, as you said, make money and pay your bills, you've got to get that schedule and work on that project. And so talk about how to make the creativity happen, even when I don't feel creative today. What am I supposed to do?
That is a very difficult question. And I wish I could think of this, who said this quote, but it's something about, I think it was specific to writers. It was like, the difference between a professional writer and a hack is that a professional writer writes even when they don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And, the thing about working freelance is it ebbs and flows too, if I have client work or not. So one of the things early on, and this I think is how our paths ended up becoming so intertwined, is that I realized that when I didn't have work on my plate, it was not an opportunity to say, oh, I'll just watch TV or fold the laundry or whatever. I don't have client work today. It was, how can I keep making progress to ultimately attract more clients? So for me, it was working on my blog and writing pitch letters. And ultimately, the work on my blog led to editors finding me just from, simple Google searches and offering me work that way. So I kind of felt like the key in the early days was to use the slow times to build toward the bigger times, the more work. And then when you have the work, it's easier to at least for me, I am a deadline driven person. When I have a lot of work, it's easy for me to stay focused because I have a list of deadlines. It's the slow times that I really struggled with early on.
It is. It's very challenging. I hear that. I hear that from other people. I'm a deadline driven person. So if you want it done, so for instance, Robbie and I work together a good bit, and she'll say to me, you need to give me a deadline. I need to know when it's due. If I don't know when it's due, I might not get it done.
Yeah.
Whereas I will just, if you tell me it has to be done, as soon as we're done talking, I'll go do it. And so then it's done and I can relax. But again, we're talking about, I really want to focus on the concept of the creativity. And creativity isn't just this fairy tale thing where some people have it and some don't. We all have creativity. I tell women that they have magic in them, and that I can help bring the magic out if that's, what they're ready to do. But it requires work. It isn't effortless. It isn't something that you do, occasionally I'll do that. Or, yes, you can come back to me with all these people that supposedly did that. And I will tell you, look a little closer, because I don't believe it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think too, there is this idea that creativity is sitting down at your desk or your workbench or behind the camera or whatever it is, and just creating the work on the spot. But really, it's kind of this long process where you're constantly taking in inspiration in what you read, in what you do, in what you watch, how you spend your time, so that the ideas are kind of always there. The practice, and I think where the consistency piece comes in, is making it a daily habit to sit down and let your thoughts kind of come out from all of that inspiration you've been gathering. It's not just saying, okay, I'm not a writer because when I sit down at my computer, I can't think of anything to write. It's like taking the time to say, okay, when I was walking the dog today, there was, some interesting weather, and starting to write about that, or whatever is on the top of your mind, just every day, even if it's no good. And even if you never sell it, just so that you get that muscle. It's like working out, you have to actually lift the weights in order to build the muscle.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree on the whole concept of, we can say though that creativity is you creating whatever it is you're creating. And so if you make quilts, that is a huge effort kind of a thing. It's, to me, the women who work with their hands and do things like that, I have such admiration for them, because I write, and writing is like, it's like drinking coffee to me. You just do it. And now I find people who say, oh my God, I would never do that because it's so hard. Mm-hmm. Well, in the end, to the point you're making, my creativity is not yours. But in order to make something happen that's going to give me an income, I have to be consistent and persistent in that. So you said earlier on in the conversation that we were saying, do it, get it out there, write those pitch letters is what you do, take the rejections. So talk to us about how to manage that, because I do think many of the women, again, we'll talk about baby boomers like myself, women who maybe are empty nesters now, they've left a job, not a career, a job, and they want to now focus on their photography. They want to focus on their jewelry making or their cake making or their quilt making. And rejection really makes them say, maybe I shouldn't do this.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. I don't know. I think a big piece of it, and this is so much easier said than done, I'll just be upfront about that. A big piece of it is to try to change your mindset around rejection and realize that, I'm used to pitching editors, so I can use that as an example, but I'm sure it's probably similar if you're trying to sell a photograph or get into an art show or something like that, that oftentimes, and you'll never know, the rejection has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It might have to do with they already have purchased a story with a similar angle to yours, and they have that coming up, and you would never know that, but you get the rejection, and it's usually a form letter, so it feels impersonal, but it may be because they're already doing something similar, or it may be because they are looking for something very specific. They have a hole that they need to fill, and your piece or your idea just didn't do it that time. So it could be more about the show or the publication or, what that editor, maybe the editor was in a bad mood that day. They woke up late, they were harried, and they're like, I'm just going to reject everything. It's kind of shifting away from thinking this is a rejection of me to this didn't work for them right now. This is something on there that is on there. And sometimes the work is not good enough. And I think if you get a lot of rejections on the same piece, you might want to take a step back and say, how can I rework this a little bit, or get some constructive criticism from someone you trust who can be helpful. But it's not a personal thing, even though it feels like it is, because we're pouring our time and energy and our love and our passion into our work. Ultimately, a rejection probably is not about you.
Well, and I think some things you snuck in there was, if you're putting it out to several different places and still getting rejection, you should do that. You should be putting it out to several different places. You should find out if it is the piece, the story, or whatever, and it needs work. I can tell you, back in my freelance days, I would send out short stories constantly. Same ones to different publications. Now, I always, and this is important for people to understand, I always made sure it was going to some place that was proper, or that I had looked at, that I had read the magazine, or that I knew they published this kind of content, because it doesn't do any good to send a sports story to a pet blogger, because unless it's got a dog in it, it's not appropriate. But no, my point being that after a while, I started getting notes from editors saying, this isn't for us now, send us something else next quarter, or this was good, we or even recommending other places to send it. And when that happens, you suddenly feel like, so to your point, it isn't me. It ain't me. All right, and then you learn. And that's where the learning comes in. And so part of that learning, to the point I'm trying to make, is, are you sending it to the right audience?
Yeah.
So in writing, you send it to the editor, and you learn as much as you can about the publication editor and what they want. And I used to tell people that I was teaching writing to that, yes, look at the magazine, look at the ads. What kind of ads do they serve? Because if you're writing something that is against their advertisers who pay their bills, they're going to publish it. But also think to yourself about the piece that you're sending. In the end, is the editor going to like it? Because to your point, the editor is the one that reads it and says yes or no. It isn't some amorphous AI in the back end of the magazine that picks the
right.
story. And there's a lot of different editors for magazines, for different stories. But so you were a blog pause, and some of the really great work you did at Blog Pause, I think, was helping create that focus on the kinds of things that you're talking about here. Is on it's not a job, it's a purpose, it's a passion. And so how do we serve the bloggers? How do we serve the sponsors? And it's a lot of work. How do you meld that in? So the zero pet waste, I mean, here you have Oh My Dog blog, and I'm a blogger, folks, so I know what it goes into trying to keep a blog up. And now she's writing for Zero Pet Waste, and you're also a freelancer, and you have a toddler. How do you do all these things, your poor husband? Is he
I know. He gets a lot of credit for supporting me in all these crazy ideas. I think it's just being very clear on what my priorities are at any given point. And they change. So right now with Oh My Dog blog, which was the first blog project I ever got off the ground, and I give it all the credit for getting me to this particular space. It started when my life looked very different, and I was writing about, all things dog in the context of my dogs. Both of the dogs who started the blog have since passed away, and now we have one dog and two cats. And I just over the years have noticed a natural evolution in my writing on that site to be less, I think, about our day to day and more about resources for pet parents. Because as I have learned, when people are faced with something with their pet, the first thing they do is they Google it. No matter what their vet says, they get in the car and they Google it. And so I feel like, going to your point on service, the best way that I can serve my audience is to just share what we're going through in a way that is personable, approachable, and non-judgmental. No matter where you're coming from, it is my hope that that's the information you can get there. That has resulted in writing not as often on that site. So I think backing off of the number of posts I produce has freed up a little bit of time for the zerowastepet.com, which was a passion project. So when I was in the third grade, this was in the 80s, I learned about the ozone layer. And if you remember, in the 80s, there was an enormous hole in the ozone layer, and it was all anybody can talk about. And I just remember sitting in my third grade classroom being terrified of this ozone layer. I thought, I'm going to be burnt to a crisp and I'm going to die before I'm 40 because of this. And so in third grade, some friends and I put together the Save Our Planet Club, and we wrote a play that we put on about recycling, and we put it on for our school and for our parents, and that was the end of the club. It fizzled out after that. So this has always kind of been something that has been part of my life, just trying to figure out how my family can live in a responsible way. Some of that content I had been writing about on Oh My Dog blog, but I just didn't feel like the audience that I have spent the last almost 10 years building there was necessarily as interested in environmental issues as I was. And so I put a ton of thought into it because, like you said, 2 blogs, it's a lot to maintain. And what I decided to do was to create the second blog, but instead of regular posting, I do one kind of mammoth post per month. So last month was all about cats. So I wrote the ultimate guide to being a zero waste cat parent. Wow. And they end up being, between 3,000 and 5,000 words, which is not a blog post. It's an article. I don't know. I just call it a guide. Yeah. I don't know what the right word is. So my hope with that is to help people who are interested in lessening not just their pets' impact on the planet, though that is certainly the focus, but their families. And again, I'm trying to keep the same non-judgmental, very actionable, affordable, easy to implement steps so that no one feels overwhelmed, but they also can understand just how big of an impact one person, one pet can have on their community. So is that a moneymaker for you? Right now I am, whenever I recommend a product, I will include an affiliate link, but I'm struggling with the money aspect on this site because a lot of websites make money from sponsors that create products. And zero waste living, of course, is to consume less, to buy less, to use what you have, to repurpose the things that you already have. So I haven't quite figured out that piece of it. Of course, everyone always asks me, like, what is the best compostable pickup bag for dog waste? What is the best kitty litter, non-toxic kitty litter? So I do integrate affiliate links into natural product recommendations, but I also don't want people to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff just because it's labeled like green or eco-friendly or whatever, because that's really counter to the idea.
You can teach people whether or not that's true. I mean, that's a big part of what I think the benefit of people who are helping me learn is that when you go in the store, for instance, and it says organic, you know, it might not be. It might be, you know, because the requirement for them to put that on the labels might be so small. So I think there's a big need for that. But to that point, there are, I thought you were going to say there were lots of organizations that wanted to work with you, because it is becoming a really big topic. I mean, when Kathleen Gage was on a few weeks ago, she talked about plant-based eating. And there's a lot of the same concepts in there, is making our carbon footprint smaller, protecting the ozone and things like that. And it does concern me and worry me, because I'm a pet parent. You know, I'm down to 1 dog now, and I used to have 3 dogs and a cat. And I do worry when I go to the store and I see people just filling up their cart with stuff that I think is like, really, you're gonna eat that? You know, but so teaching. So what I'm getting from you is both of the sites that you do are very big on the education. By the way, I left a comment today on my dog blog.
Oh, thank you.
The story that I read was about teaching your dog to come when it's called. Okay, nothing more. To me, there's nothing more important, because if you don't teach your dog to come when it's called, it could run into traffic. It could. There are many things.
Yes.
My biggest fear in life is that you're in a minor car accident where you don't really get hurt, but the door pops open, the dog runs off. If you haven't taught that dog to come when it's called, that dog is gone, because it's scared. It doesn't understand what happened, and who knows. So I left a comment there for that, because I think and so. Let's talk about the concept then of being a entrepreneur in a gig economy and educating people. So, for instance, my sister makes jewelry, and I said, we should film you making some earrings.
Yeah.
People would love to see how you do that. It's not, you shouldn't worry about, oh, if I do that, people will then go and they'll make earrings and they won't buy mine. That is a wrong thinking. When you educate people, they appreciate you, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I watch a lot of DIY content, but I don't make hardly anything. I mean, a lot of times I will think to myself, you know, with the example for your sister, gosh, I would love to make a pair of earrings. And I watch the video and then I think, I'm not going to make the time for that in my day, but I think that piece is lovely and I'll buy it from her store now. Right.
Because you've watched her and now you feel closer to her and you feel like she's a real person, not just a name behind a product. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for people who are creators of physical goods that you would buy either from an online retailer or at an art fair or even a brick and mortar store, that kind of content really lends itself well to teaching, because you can kind of do this like done with you model of teaching. So someone who's creating something like that, they may be able to create a course that they sell that says, you know, make a pair of earrings in, I don't know how long a pair, 7 days, you know, whatever it is. So instead of going out and purchasing something, someone may be interested in DIYing it, but have no idea where to start. A course would be fantastic.
Exactly. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities there. In fact, so back to what you do in the writing and the focus on pets. And so you co-authored with the lovely Carol Bryant, who has
Yes.
also been a Smart Woman Conversation, a new book that is going to be out in 2020. And talk to us about that. Why did you do it, and what is it about?
Yes. Okay. So it comes out January 6th, 2020. That's the official date. We started talking about this idea because we noticed that, especially after blog pause, but then as the digital landscape just, it changes, it shifts really quickly, it changes from year to year, and we started noticing all of these conversations happening online in various places where people were saying basically, help. I wish I had I need help. I don't know what to do. And it's people like you're talking about who are passionate. They love what they do. But once you get into it, you realize, I don't know. I love my topic, but I don't know everything about putting it out there. I don't know everything about Facebook or Google or WordPress even. So we started compiling a list of all of the questions that we were seeing out there. And we started taking a ton of notes on these things that we were seeing in all of these, Facebook, of course, is a big place, but even on Twitter and Instagram, and what kind of questions were people asking, and what kind of questions were people coming to us directly to get answers to. And we just sort of mapped it out and thought, I think we have a book here. We said, we need to write a book because these questions keep coming up over and over again, and everybody who's passionate, they deserve to be able to overcome whatever technical difficulties they're having or social media challenges they're struggling with so that they can continue to do what they're passionate about. So we just kind of mapped it out, created a spreadsheet with all of this information, and co-wrote the whole thing beginning to end. It is comprehensive. It's over 300 pages.
Holy cow.
Yeah, we have a ton of extra resources, and we have some fun freebies that are going to come with purchase and all of that.
So is this going to be a print book or an ebook? Or I'm thinking of the resources you may have in there, and a lot of ways to connect people to resources is a hyperlink. But if it's a print book, the hyperlink will have to be spelled out.
Yeah, so you can order it in either form. I think we talked a lot about that early on, and I think everybody consumes information differently. And even though I work mostly online, I am a print. I mean, this is like not even a tenth of what's in this house. These are just my current resources.
Oh, yeah.
I am a print book person.
Yep.
I would hate to limit someone's ability to learn by only offering one format. So we're going to have both. The additional resources are going to be digital. So people who have the print book will have to go online at some point to download some extra materials if they choose. They might say, forget it.
Right.
But yeah, so that way we cover the spread.
So we're getting to the end of our time here, but the writing of a book, as a former book publisher, as a book writer, the writing of a book is it's a really big job. Okay, so I'm giving you and Carol, writing it with another person. It sounds like it's easier, but it's not. And understanding then your audience and your topic is all part of the whole thing that we've been talking about, the creativity and how to make this entrepreneurship that you're developing work, because you and Carol both are very passionate about pets. She's a dog person, you're a pet person. And through the community that you're both connected to online, which was once part of Blog Pause, but still exists, folks. So just because there's no blog post doesn't mean the pet bloggers went away. They're still there. They're a big community. They're very active, and from my perspective, okay, and this is my opinion, they're desperate for this information. Maggie, you and Carol really have hit the nail on the head here, because so many talented people, creative people, don't know that other side.
Right.
So you have your creativity that we've been talking about, and you put it out there because you're passionate. Now, as you're learning and you're going to be helping them, what do you do with it? So 300 pages is a lot. You know, the thought is today that people don't want to read that much. However, I think they do. And also to what you were saying earlier, writing a blog post of 3,000 to 5,000 words. Well, those are becoming popular also because I think people are desperate for the information. So the book comes out January 6th.
Yep.
Tell us what chapter 3 is.
Chapter 3, I think might be, okay, so 1 is getting started. Chapter 3 might be voice. We talked a lot about, because I think chapter 4 is design. So I think chapter 3 might be voice. We talked a lot about, specific to the pet blogger, how if you're writing about animals, it's easy to feel like you should take yourself out of it. But I have always felt very strongly the opposite. I think that people need information about the pets they love so much, but they need it from someone they trust. And so I think cultivating a voice that is uniquely your own, it's authentic to who you are as a person, who you are as a pet parent, is the way to stand out from the crowd of bloggers. And it's a way to generate that trust and loyalty with an audience. So we devoted, I think, almost an entire chapter to just cultivating your written voice.
Well, that's amazing. And I just picked that out of the air, but one of the things I talk unendingly about is voice. Because people don't know what that means.
No, and I think people do know what it means. I think they understand the idea of it. It's just that I think that a lot of writers are afraid to actually use their voice because it doesn't sound like what's already out there, and they think that's bad, when really it's good, because there are so many people creating content on the internet that if you don't sound different in some way, you're just more background and can be kind of clicked off of, versus if you feel empowered to express what you want to say, how you as a real person would say it, you're likely to get people who think, oh, I really like her. I'm going to come back and read this site some more. Or conversely, just to be very upfront, you're getting at people who are like, I really do not like this person. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, and it happens. I do think you're right, but too many people think voice is something they say, so it's that sound that comes out, so it's one thing or another. And I think to your point, it's good to teach them the value of their own expression, so to speak. And they have stories to tell that I don't. I mean, my stories are not their stories. So that's really great. So, well, we can't wait. And let us know. We want to help promote that book and make sure that
thank you.
Of it. And I want to thank you for being on Smart Women Conversations today. Maybe after the book comes out and you've been all over the country promoting it.
Yeah.
And I would love then maybe to get you and Carol on and talk a little bit about not just, so people who write books, it isn't enough just to write the book and say, I wrote a book, here it is. There's so much more that you can do with the book, so much more that you should be doing about the book, and stories to share. So maybe when that happens, we'll get back together.
I would love that. That would be fantastic.
That would be awesome. So everyone, I hope you learned a little bit today, and tune into the blog where I'm going to share more of Maggie Marton and share this with all of your friends, because this particular Smart Woman Conversation really touches on the creativity of being someone in a gig economy. So Maggie, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.